Everybody. Oh, sorry, did I make you jump then? Thanks everyone for attending the meeting of planning on the 12th of September 2023. I'm Councillor June Molyneux, Chair of the committee, Councillor Alex Hilton's Vice Chair. Please note the meeting is being streamed live on YouTube. If you're in attendance as a member of the public who has registered to speak, please note that you have a time limit of up to 3 minutes. The legal officer will operate a stopwatch and confirm when your time runs out. You should finish then, or if you're in the middle of making a point, just wind up. Otherwise, your microphone will be muted. To assist in following this evening's proceedings, a pack's been prepared and is available online, containing each item's report, plans, presentation slides and any addendum. After officers have presented the report and any speakers have made their representations, I will invite members to make any comments. When you want to speak, please raise your hand, members, and turn your microphone on. When you finish speaking, will you please turn your microphone off? When speaking, could you please reference the paragraph number to enable everyone to follow you? Please, can everyone ensure that their phones are turned to silent? And we're not expecting a fire drill, so if it goes off, it's real, but please exit the way you came in. Apologies.
We have apologies from Councillor Alan Whittaker.
Thank you. Moving on to any declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interests in respect of matters on the agenda. If you have a pecuniary interest, you must withdraw from the meeting. Normally, you should leave the room before the business starts to be discussed. But you do, however, have the same right to speak as a member of the public and may remain in the room to enable you to exercise that right, but then leave immediately. In either case, you must not seek to improperly influence a decision on the matter. Item 2, minutes of the meeting Tuesday, the 15th of August, pages 3 to 6. Can somebody move those minutes, please? Thanks, Councillor Hilton. Somebody second them. Thanks, Councillor Southern. All those in favour? Thank you. That moves us swiftly on to item 3, which is the applications to be determined. For the benefit of the public here tonight, speaking arrangements for planning applications are as follows. Officers will summarise the report and registered speakers will be invited to speak in the following order. Objector, supporter, parish or town councillor, ward councillor, applicant or agent. All registered speakers will be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes, apart from a ward councillor who may speak for up to 5 minutes. In the event that all speakers are against an application, as chair, I may grant the applicant or representative a time extension. I would respectfully ask members of the public who have not registered to speak to remain quiet throughout the proceedings. Item 3A is the former Mormon Church, Water Street, Chorley, pages 7 to 50, with an update on your addendum. Adele's going to present this item with an officer recommendation that planning permission is granted subject to conditions, as outlined in the report. I have one registered speaker, an objector, John Howarth. Adele, can you please present that report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Good evening, everybody. This application site is located within the core settlement area of Chorley, close to Chorley Town Centre and lies within the St Lawrence's Conservation Area. It comprises vacant land following the demolition of a building several years ago, which was used as a Mormon church meeting room, and the site has since become overgrown with vegetation. The topography of the area is distinctive and there is a steep increase in levels to the rear of the site up to Park Street and Park Road to the northwest. There is a terrace of traditional appearance to the southwest of the site and dwellings of more recent design style on the opposite side of Water Street. There is a distinctive stone step footpath to the northeast and the Grade 2 listed Chorley Unitarian Chapel to the north, in addition to locally listed buildings. Planning permission is sought for the erection of a 3-storey apartment block with rooms in the loft space to provide 20 apartments. The scheme includes vehicular access to and from Water Street and associated parking. Each of the proposed apartments would have 2 bedrooms. The proposal involves some ground levelling work and the introduction of a retaining wall. The proposed building would be set back from the retained stone frontage wall by approximately 3 metres, and this area would be soft landscaped. 17 neighbour objections have been received, which raise issues that include flood risk, tree loss, ecological harm and impact on residential amenity. As explained in detail in the committee report, there are no outstanding objections from technical consultees, although the Council's Heritage Advisor has commented that the proposal would be harmful to the appearance of the St Lawrence's conservation area, although this harm would be of a low level and less than substantial. The local planning authority must therefore consider the wider public benefits of the proposal against the level of harm to the significance of the heritage asset affected in its planning balance. The site is located within the settlement area of Chorley, as I said before, which is identified as a key service centre in the Central Lancashire Core Strategy as a focus for growth. Members will also be aware that Policy V2 of the local plan sets out that within settlement areas that are excluded from the green belt, there is a presumption in favour of appropriate sustainable development. Whilst the recommendation in this instance is finely balanced, it's considered that the wider public benefits of the proposal in the form of delivering a much needed form of accommodation in a suitable and sustainable location on a brownfield site and its associated social and economic impacts would outweigh the harm caused by the proposal. Members will note that in the committee report that other issues could be controlled by planning conditions, and again in the papers the application is recommended for approval subject to conditions and a Section 106 agreement to secure financial contributions for the provision of public open space and affordable housing. However, I've been made aware that some of the correspondence that we send out to notify local residents that the meeting has taken place and that the application is due for consideration have arrived within the last 24 to 48 hours. Generally, when local residents make representations via the council's website or send information and comments in via email, we do have an email that we can invite contributors to, so they get the letter instantaneously. Where residents submit a letter, then we are reliant on the postal service to deliver those letters that are sent out as soon as the agenda is made public and the recommendation is in the public domain. But it would appear that the letters that were sent out last Wednesday have only just arrived. On that basis, and given some of the concerns raised in the representations, I would therefore like to formally amend the recommendation that members defer consideration of this application in order to undertake a site visit to see the relationship of the proposal in the street scene, and also to give us the opportunity to engage with local residents so that we can maybe obtain some email addresses that we can send letters out for next committee, so members have more, so residents have more notice to be able to attend the meeting. So I'd just like to take this opportunity to formally amend the officer recommendation to defer consideration of the application in order to undertake a site visit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And to go along with that, as Chair, I would like to move that, please. So, Councillor Hill, will you second it?
Yeah, I'll second that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So if that's in agreement with you, all those members, please vote. Can we do the vote now, please, Dan? And it's, yes, it is the officer recommendation, yeah. I have voted. Oh, it's me that wasn't doing it.
Thank you.
No. So if you've come for that application, you can leave now if you want. Okay. No, well, save it for next time, if it's appropriate.
Well, if you're coming for a site visit, I live.
Yeah, but it's just for members, the site visit.
Okay.
Okay.
No sugar, right?
Uh,
Yeah. Just to formally confirm, members have resolved unanimously that the application be deferred to allow members to undertake a site visit.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, you can, if you want to go now, you can. It's up to you. Or you want to stay.
I'd like to make the point that be considered by the councillors on their site visit.
Let me just come back.
No.
Let me come back. Through you, Chair, I would make the point that we will write to residents again and invite them to give us some information of what they would like members to look at and take into account on the site visit. So we will be in touch. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Adele. or thereafter.
Chair, just for a couple of minutes on Matthew gets their emails of the people.
Yeah. With your consent, I'm just going to adjourn for a couple of minutes because Matthew needs to obtain some details from these people. So. Agenda item, he's done it for me, to 3B, Whitegates, 75 Gorsey Lane, Mawdesley, pages 51 to 74, with an update on your addendum. Ian's going to present this item. Recommendation permission in principle is refused for the reasons outlined. I have two registered speakers, the ward councillor, Councillor Alan Platt, and the agent, Martin Boardman. Ian, can you please present the report?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This application seeks permission in principle for a maximum of 9 bungalow dwellings for older persons on land to the north side of Gorsey Lane in Mawdesley. The application site comprises garden and open pasture land and is located in the green belt to the southeast of the village. The scope of application seeking permission in principle is limited to location, land use and amount of development. Other matters should be considered at the technical details consent stage should permission in principle be granted. As such, matters relating to highways, drainage, character, amenity impacts and other matters fall outside of what the local planning authority can assess as part of this current application. In considering matters of principle, the framework sets out that the development of new buildings in the Greenbelt should be regarded as inappropriate, subject to a number of exceptions. The proposed development would not meet any of these exceptions and is therefore inappropriate development, which is harmful by definition. There would also be additional harm to the purposes of including land within the Greenbelt that will be caused through unrestricted sprawl and encroachment. As the development would result in definitional harm to the Greenbelt and other harm, there would have to be very special circumstances to justify the grant of permission in principle that would outweigh this harm. The applicant has advanced a number of benefits in support of the development, and in considering these, it must be recognised that the council cannot demonstrate a 5-year housing supply. The benefits are set out in the report and comprise fulfilling a need for older persons housing in an area where that need is greatest, a contribution to housing supply in the absence of a 5-year supply, economic benefits through supporting jobs during construction. Whether or not these benefits amount to the very special circumstances necessary to outweigh the harm to the Greenbelt and other harm is a matter of planning judgment and is for the decision maker to determine. In this instance, it's considered that even though significant weight can be attributed to certain benefits advanced in support of the development, even when weighted cumulatively, these do not outweigh the substantial harm to the Greenbelt and other harm and would not amount to very special circumstances, which would be contrary to the framework. It's therefore recommended that permission in principle is refused. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Platt.
Madam Chairman and members of the committee, thank you.
Your light's not working, you see.
Oh, right, hang on.
That's what I thought it was.
Is that working? Yeah.
It's just the light.
Oh, it's just a light that's not working. It's mine. Okay.
I'll start again. Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak to you in respect of this application.
It's acknowledged, as was mentioned, under normal circumstances, this application could be seen to represent inappropriate development within the Greenbelt, and it fails to meet the exceptions contained within the local plan, which may make the development permissible. However, in this case, other considerations should be taken into account which may be seen to outweigh this inappropriateness and provide the very special circumstances, of which one day somebody might be able to let me know what they mean, because I've always found it to be a little sort of Harry Potterish in this. It means all things to all men. The special circumstances required for approval. The issue of the provision of suitable accommodation for older residents is a subject often raised by the residents of the borough themselves, and their opinions should be taken into account. Indeed, the conclusion of this council's very own housing needs survey identifies a clear need for specialist older person accommodation. Recent developments in rural areas, which I'm sure the committee will be fully aware of, have tended to comprise of larger properties, and historically, most likely for reasons of profit, there has been little or no interest shown by developers in building smaller single-storey properties which would enable residents to downsize and free up larger family-sized properties in these rural areas. This application does precisely that, and the need for the properties of this type for older residents should be seen as very special circumstances. I would like to end by asking the members of the committee to take into account the amount of support demonstrated by residents and the local parish council in the comments submitted relating to this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Pratt. Mr Boardman. Welcome back.
Good evening, Chair and Councillors. Can I thank you for allowing me to speak this evening? My name is Martin Boardman. I'm owner of a small architectural practice and building contractors based in Mawdesley. I'm speaking tonight as agent for the landowner and applicant Paul Bennett in support of the application for planning in principle. As you've heard from the officers, the parcel of land is off Gorsey Lane and is mainly in an area washed over with greenbelt. The entire site owned by the applicant is some 8 acres. We are proposing a small development of low impact, sustainable homes on just a small piece of this land at around 1.2 acres. The site area in question is bounded on 3 sides to the south, east and west with the existing proposed residential dwellings. The site lies on the very edge of Mawdesley village settlement boundary. I urge you to read Mawdesley Parish Council's comments submitted in support of this application. These are very detailed, well balanced and worthy of consideration. There are currently 10 comments of public support, 1 neutral, 2 objections to the application, all of which have raised very valid points. LCC Highways have no objections to the proposed application, and the proposed development would not have a significant impact on highway safety. Both the applicant and I understand that inappropriate development is, by definition, harmful to the Greenbelt and should not be approved except in very special circumstances. The application in front of you this evening goes some way to demonstrate those very special circumstances. As we've said, your own Chorley housing needs strategy identifies a number of general trends that underpin this type of accessible housing for the elderly. In our borough, the report identifies that over the period of 21 to 38, the number of people aged 65 and over is expected to increase by 40%, additional 9,800 residents aged 65 and over. Your survey also indicates 59% of older people planning to move would like to move to a property with fewer bedrooms. The general conclusion being that smaller dwellings are needed to accommodate older movers. Your own report concludes that there's a need for 771 additional units of specialist older person accommodation by 38, 46 homes per year. The survey does also demonstrate Mawdesley is characterised by older families and mature couples, which suggests there's a ready-made market for new older person accommodation for those people who wish to either downsize or have physically or mental capacity issues going forward. The scheme has a number of additional benefits which we've adhered to by way of enhanced open space, enhanced green infrastructure and accessibility to that infrastructure. The applicant is prepared to deliver sustainable homes with significant low energy use and emissions, utilising the latest green technologies such as air source heat pumps, heating hot water, solar electric generation, rainwater harvesting and grey water recycling, and the improved biodiversity enhancement across the whole site. We cannot ignore the fact that this application, if successful, will provide much needed elderly person accommodation where many of the over 55s live in family homes with 3 to 5 bedrooms and are desperate to downsize but stay within the village. Freeing 9 family homes for recycling onto the open market, many of the public comments cite on this side this is one of their main reasons for their support. Every planning application should be judged on its own merits, and each application site should be viewed by the decision makers as a balance of weight in favour of approval or rejection. We need to ask ourselves, is the perceived harm to the openness of this area of Greenbelt significant enough that the benefits of the scheme, such as this, cannot outweigh? Nearly finished. Should councillors be in any doubt, I would urge you to move a decision for a site visit where you can view the land for yourselves and gauge the impact a small development of this will have on an already built up area. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I must admit, having seen the proposal put forward, it has certainly struck a chord with me. There is a demand for this type of housing. It's the one thing that we do get asked for above everything else is bungalows. And the reason, as has already been alluded to, developers don't build them because they don't make up enough money. This particular proposal, if people have actually looked across the drawings that submitted forwards there, it's not a particularly pretty site, to be perfectly honest with you. It's a piece of scrubland that's sat at the back there that I think in times gone by was agricultural use, or possibly it was, I think, greenhouses were on there, and there was a pond at the back of it. The density side of it, I did think initially the 9 houses might be a little bit too dense there, but the 8 seems to sit very, very well. But the overwhelming thing that struck me was the lack of impact from the actual main road there. You tend to think of the development as such that there's a sprawl in the green belt and there's actually visual bulk to it. This isn't the case because it's actually coming between 2 other houses. And the thing that did strike me particularly was the rear part of it, the pond and the eco area, which is of great interest to me. And I think it's around those parameters where I would be looking at it more favourably. In terms of the runoff pond there giving attenuation for surface water, and the regeneration of the green part of it. There is definitely a need for this particular type of building. And again, as has been alluded to, we do get asked for all the time. So I would say at the very least that I propose we at least have a site visit and have a look at the site. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Franz.
Thank you, Chair. Just one quick question for the officers. I'm assuming that obviously paragraph 7 of the original report, Lancashire County Council Highways were objecting. On page 5 of the addendum, they seem to have come back saying they haven't any objections. I'm quite happy to say I'd like to just go and look at that myself. But obviously there has been a change of mind.
Through you, Chair. Yeah. There was an initial objection from the County Council Highways, which the applicant sought to address. The County Council have had a look at the details provided by the applicant, and they accept that they address their issues with sightlines. And they've removed their objection, essentially. It's worth mentioning that highways actually aren't a matter for consideration as part of this application process. So it wouldn't have been a matter that would have that was under assessment really as part of the application. It's purely about principle. So highways aren't something that we're actually assessing. But it is useful information going forward, perhaps. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Hilton.
Thanks, Chair. As Ian says, this is about the principle of development with this type of application. If this development were elsewhere, I'd actually be broadly in favour of it, but it's not. It is in the green belt, and as the agent says, it does go some way into meeting special circumstances. I just don't believe it goes far enough. So for the type of application this is in terms of the principle, I believe the officers have summarised it quite clearly that there is unacceptable harm to the green belt. So I'm happy to propose officer recommendations for that reason. Thanks,
Thank you. Can Councillor G and then Councillor Ainsworth.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of questions before. On the aerial photograph, the applicant site is outlined in red. That's for the building. Is the applicant site all of it where the dotted lines go down further down and round? Is that the applicant, all of the applicant site? Or is the applicant site, if you look at the layout, you'll see the blue sign that goes where the housing is, then it's a blue area, which is the yeah, there's that one there where it goes in a straight line. Is that all the applicant's site?
Yeah, through you, Chair. The application site is actually the area that's edged red at the bottom, where it's the indicative area of the housing. The land beyond that, where you've got the pond and the path, is actually outside the application site.
Yeah,
it's in land owned by the applicant,
Yeah,
but it's outside the application
That's what I
site.
want to know. Right then, the reason I've asked that, Chair, is you've got the applicant site for the building, but then you've got the rest of it there. Excuse me, not being cynical, and I know you can't prejudge something that's going in the future, but I just think once that's, if it goes ahead, there's nothing to stop the whole of that area being developed, because you've done the first bit. And sorry, I'm being cynical, so I'll just leave it that, and I'll go along with the site visit.
Thanks, Chair. Can I second Councillor Hilton, please? I think the site's too small, my view, and I think the dwellings are too small, and I think it's very inappropriate development.
Thank you. Councillor Southern, then Councillor Morwood, then Councillor Snow.
No, thank you, Chair. I'm not entirely sure that the definition, the delineation of this site, rather, is correct. I was led to believe that it covered more than that. Is that correct? Can we have a clarification? Is this the actual site size here, as defined? Is it right or not? Possibly could the agent or who else shed some light on that?
Ian?
Through you, Chair. The application site is the area where the housing is shown. It's edged red. That's the application site. The land beyond it, where you've got a blue line going around it, you've got a pond and a path, that's in the ownership of the applicant, but it's outside the application site. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Morwood.
Thank you, Chair. The idea is terrific. It's very sound. There is a need for bungalows, accessible or not just for older people. And I always find it funny that older people start at about 50. So we could all put our names down. It's in the wrong place. We're working very hard on our current local plan to avoid going onto Greenbelt. And at the end of the day, that is the problem. It's on Greenbelt. And we can think of it as special circumstances because it's for older people. And we're trying to keep our older people in the villages that they've grown up in, so that perhaps the younger people could take over their bigger houses. But there's no guarantee that those bungalows will go to locals. There's nothing in there that says absolutely that we're not going to sell it to anybody else. So I worry about that. It's happened in the past in other areas. People have said that we'll only do it for NHS workers and that sort of thing, and it never works out like that. But at the end of the day, it's very straightforward. It's on Greenbelt. And if we allow this, then every other developer will come along and pick a piece of Greenbelt, pick a piece of Greenbelt and say, we're going to put some bungalows on there. And then they'll change their mind and they say, oh, well, it's not viable, and they'll change it to something else. So I just think this would open floodgates, it would be horrendous if we start nibbling away, and I've talked about it in the past, nibbling away at the Greenbelt, however good we think it might be. But in this case, I'm not so sure. There are better places for them, unfortunately. Yes, they're owned by the bigger developers. And it would be ideal in a more central position. Because if you're getting old and you can't drive, then that position is not exactly next to the shops in Mawdesley. There's not a lot of bus traffic goes up and down there. So you're relying on cars and all the rest of it. So it's a pity that some of the bigger developers can't see, as has been pointed out, there is a need for bungalows. And they could perhaps relook at some of the future applications. But in this case, as far as I'm concerned, it's straightforward. I cannot allow this to go forward because it's on Greenbelt. It's as simple as that. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, Councillor Moore was made very eloquently most of the points that I was going to make. I think it is very sad, though, that, I mean, there is a bit of an opportunity here, and I have a lot of sympathy with the landowner and the developer that they have come up with a scheme that is nearly convincing for us, that the principle here is not in the right place in the village. It'd be great if if the parish council could identify places within the village. There's definitely a need for this sort of development. So I would support the officer's recommendation, but with a degree of reluctance.
Thank you, Councillor. So Adele.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to remind members of the process that this application is submitted under. It's not an application for planning permission. It's an application for permission in principle. So we're not actually considering technical matters. We're not considering access, density, flood risk, all of those normal matters you would as a planning application. It's simply an assessment as to whether it's acceptable in principle. The report sets out quite clearly it's in the green belt. Therefore, as a matter of fact, it is inappropriate development in the green belt. And therefore, as a matter of fact, it is harmful. It's not a perceived harm, it's an actual harm. The judgment call to be made is whether that level of harm is outweighed by the benefits advanced by the scheme and whether or not they amount to very special circumstances. Going back to Councillor...
Who was it?
Who was it who said it? I think it's Councillor Platt. Councillor Platt's comments about understanding the definition of very special circumstances, it is quite clear that they're not just special, they have to be absolutely almost unique, not to be repeated in other parts of the borough. So that's the judgment call, whether the benefits advanced constitute the very special circumstances that outweigh the definitional harm as a matter of fact to the green belt, which is clearly set out in national planning policy. And that's the judgment call. It's not about the technical matters. You know, there's an element of visual harm, there's an element of spatial harm, but as a matter of fact, there is spatial harm as a matter of fact because it is development in the green belt. I just want to clarify the process of permission in principle. It's different than a planning application. Thank you.
Okay. Well, before I move on, I'm just going to say, as Adele said, it's in the green belt. In my eyes, it's not. A site visit would be giving somebody false hope, in my opinion. But I'll leave that to you. Can we vote on the amendment first? All those in favour of a site visit, please show.
Okay, so members have voted to not deferred the application to allow members to undertake a site visit.
Thank you. And now, can we vote for the officer recommendation, please? When he's cleared that. All those in favour of the officer recommendation? Okay.
Okay, so members have resolved to refuse planning permission in principle for the reasons set out in the report.
Thank you. If anybody's come for that, if you wish to leave now, please feel free. Will not be offended. Moving on. To item 3C, I've not turned over, is land west of Oakfields and 197 Runshaw Lane, Euxton, pages 75 to 96. Ian's going to present this item and the officer's recommendation is that planning permission is refused for the reasons outlined in the report. I've no registered speakers, so over to you, Ian.
Thank you, Chair. This application seeks planning permission for the erection of 2 stable buildings, a covered midden and other associated development including a sand paddock, stone access tracks, grass creek parking area and vehicular access from Runshaw Lane to provide a commercial equestrian facility offering livery and schooling. The application site comprises open grassland pasture and is located in the Greenbelt to the west of Euxton. In considering matters of principle, the framework sets out that the development of new buildings in the Greenbelt shall be regarded as inappropriate, subject to a number of exceptions. The proposed development has the potential to engage with the exception to inappropriate development that supports facilities for outdoor sport and recreation. However, this exception is on the proviso that any development must preserve the openness of the Greenbelt and not conflict with any of the purposes of including land within it. Any new buildings in this location would inevitably have an impact on openness as the site is currently free from development or buildings. As the development would fail to preserve openness, it would not comply with any of the exceptions to inappropriate development in the Greenbelt and is therefore harmful by definition. There would also be additional harm to the purposes of including land within the Greenbelt in that there would be harm through encroachment. As the development would result in definitional harm to the Greenbelt and other harm, there would have to be very special circumstances to justify the grant of planning permission that would outweigh this harm. The applicant has advanced a number of benefits in support of this development. The benefits are set out in the report and comprise, in summary, a specialised equestrian facility of which there is a shortage, economic benefits of supporting a business and associated jobs. The operators will be highly skilled and competent practitioners and there are no other opportunities for them to develop such a facility in the area. There is a general shortage of equestrian stables in the area. Facilities will be provided for children and those with specific behavioural needs. It would provide an education resource and would result in enhanced landscaping and biodiversity. Whether or not these benefits amount to the very special circumstances or can be secured is for the decision maker to determine, and whether these would amount to the very special circumstances that would outweigh the harm is a matter of judgment. In this instance, it's considered that even when weighted cumulatively, the benefits advanced do not outweigh the substantial harm to the Greenbelt and other harm and would not amount to very special circumstances, which is contrary to the framework. It's therefore considered that the proposed development is unacceptable in principle and it's recommended that planning permission is refused. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, it's over to you. Councillor G has indicated.
Thank you, Chair. Looking at the plan, yes, it's there. It is in the green belt. The one thing that's missing from the plan is there's no buildings for residents or buildings for people coming. So I can imagine if we accepted it, that would be the next thing, that they'd want some sort of building there for the people there. It's a beautiful part of Euxton. I'm sure a lot of people, councillors, know the area. I've read the report, I've listened to the officers, and I've no hesitation in going for the officer's recommendation of refusal, because it would be a defect against the beautiful area of Euxton, and I don't think it would give any benefit to Euxton.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Morwood.
Thank you, Chair.
Did you have your hand up then, Councillor Franz? Yeah, I've got you. Sorry.
It's all right. If we thought the previous application was a near-run thing, you only have to look at the pictures we've just had to see a beautiful open countryside with nothing impeding the view whatsoever. So it's quite clear-cut, even more clear-cut this time. I'm happy to second the officer recommendation. And if they could just next time spell my name right, that would be good. Yeah, oh, I've had it many ways.
Councillor Morwood's done it for me.
If nobody else wishes to comment, I'll move to the vote.
Well, thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do actually see a benefit to it, but in conjunction with my fellow councillors, it is in the wrong place. It's a shame. I can see the benefits of an equestrian centre, but just not in this particular location, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so members have unanimously resolved to refuse planning permission for the reason outlined in the report.
It does have to think about it.